Hey, it's Friday, October 4th, let's talk PlayStation. As always on the show, let's cover up some smaller news stories before we go into our cover story and the thumbnail and all that. Ratchet and Clank into the Nexus, we all remember this, that single-player Ratchet game coming out. Well, now we know when it's coming out. November 12th for North America and November 13th for Europe. Now, what's more interesting about this announcement is also the thing that happened this week, which is the ESRB has rated the game for PlayStation Vita. Now, before Insomniac was saying it's not coming to Vita, and they kept saying that it's not coming to Vita, but maybe it will if we can produce a quality version of it, and ESRB rated it, plus some product listings are going up for the game on certain websites. It's pretty much, I would say, confirmed. I mean, obviously Insomniac isn't confirming it, and they're still denying it, but, as I've said before, product listings certainly hint at it. Those have always had some truth to it. But more importantly, when the ESRB rates it, that's kind of like, the ESRB doesn't rate things that aren't going to happen. They usually are always dead set and dead on. I mean, you've got product listings, you've got the ESRB, I mean, you've got all these outlets that are saying it exists, and, that would probably mean it is going to happen at some point, even if it's not day and date with the PS3 version, because, that obviously is coming up quite fast, and we still don't, they're still not confirming it, but I think we'll probably see one at some point. So if you turned on your PlayStation 3 to play some video games October 1st to now, then chances are if you wanted to get online or play PSN, you had to download the new firmware update for PS3, firmware 4.50, 50, whatever you want to call it. That bad boy's out and it's got some features. This new firmware update actually unlocks some features that PlayStation Plus members originally had, and now all PSN users have. Automatic download of system software is pretty much now available to everybody, including automatic download of purchases where you made elsewhere. So, for example, if you buy something at work from your computer on PSN, your PS3 will beep alive at a certain time and download those things for you. You don't have to be a Plus member for that. That's obviously pretty cool, and some of the more important automatic downloads like game patches and trophy syncing, that's still behind the PlayStation Plus paywall, so it's not really diminishing the value of PS Plus, but still offering something for all the other users, so that's obviously cool. Other subtle changes to this firmware update to your PlayStation 3 is under the PSN icon, PlayStation Network, they just changed it to PSN. That's it. Just sort of embracing that name. That's kind of cool. Other things included in 4.50. If you remember a while ago, I made a video showing you how to hide trophies on your PS Vita. You can now do that on your PS3. That's what this update also includes. And you can actually transfer content between PS3 and Vita over Wi-Fi. So that's actually pretty convenient. I think it's safe to say with PS4 around the corner, we're not going to see many major firmware updates ever come again for PS3, like major system updates where we get in-game XMB or something like that. We're how late in the PS3's life cycle, so I don't think we'll be seeing any more major firmware updates, but it's cool that we're still getting these small incremental ones that add these little nice touches and stuff, little cherries on ice cream cones. It's like you're eating an ice cream and Sony keeps putting a cherry after every bite, so it's like, and then you keep getting a cherry. But if you don't like the cherries, then pick them out. What am I talking about? Moving on, Sony UK's Faral Gara has confirmed that Killzone Shadowfall is pretty much going to be roughly around 50 gigabytes as a download. So if you want to download Killzone Shadowfall when you get your PS4, it's roughly going to be 50 gigabytes. And that's a lot, obviously. Now, of course, PS4 500 gigabyte hard drive right off the bat, you can't upgrade this, but let's say you keep that 500 gigabyte hard drive and you want to download all your games, full on, you want to stay digital, you probably wouldn't have that much space. But that's, kind of shows we're going in the next generation. These games do look more graphically intensive. They are more demanding and stuff like that, and it's going to be larger size. One thing to keep in mind, though, that down the line, certain developers will find certain ways to optimize the games and, bring them down in size just a little bit. But, you look at it now with, PS3, you still got downloads right now. They're pushing 18 to 20 plus gigabytes, and they're only going to get larger. So if you are going to go digital on PS4 and buy retail games, I do highly suggest you get a couple TBs in that bad boy, terabytes in that PS4. So this next news story I actually really like a lot. Shuhei Yoshida, of course, Sony Worldwide Studios. He's been doing a lot of interviews this past week, a lot of interviews for the past how many months now. He's pretty much in every Let's Talk PlayStation episode, but he talked about Vita sales and basically how Sony's not concerned about catching up to the 3DS sales. And I really like the fact that he acknowledged this, because Sony's acknowledging that they have a device that they know is not going to sell hundreds of millions of units. They're saying they know they're not going to do it, because that's just not what this device is built for. And even Sony themselves are saying it. Shuhei basically said, we don't necessarily talk about catching up to the 3DS, but we just like to increase the install base of the PS Vita. And that's exactly what I've been saying on this channel for a long time. Sony's not going to sell millions and millions and millions of Vitas, but they're going to have a nice, respectable, small, install base. They just want to increase the install base a little bit. And you always got to think of it from a business perspective. Sony is in video games because they make money from video games, and it's, you know, the number one thing isn't always beating the competition. Why would that be their number one, you know, prerogative? Their number one thing is, let's make some money. Let's sell some Vitas, let's sell some games, let's make some money off of this device that we just made. So it's not always about, like, you know, catching up to 3DS, because Nintendo's gone. We're not gonna. Sony's not gonna catch up to them. Like, they've got their thing. They're doing their thing. They're making lots of money with the 3DS, and that's good that they're being so successful. On the other hand, Sony's made a device that is really niche, and it's, you know, kind of struggling. Has a little bit of lack of software, but they're pushing it, and they're hoping to have, you know, better software support, and, you know, the price drop. Like, they're moving forward with this thing, right? Do you see all these hand gestures I'm making? Like, they want to go forward. Now, while we're on the topic of Vita and moving it forward, echoing Shuhei Yoshida's, you know, original comments about Vita sales, Sony UK's Pharrell Gara had another interview, and he was talking about how this PS4 Vita Bundle that we've been hearing so much about is becoming more and more of a reality each day inside of Sony. What he was basically saying is, when Sony, like, demoed Assassin's Creed 4 on the Vita, you know, remote playing, there was a little bit of surge in Vita sales, so there's obviously that interest level is there. But what's interesting is how nonchalantly he talked about how Sony makes bundles. He basically said, like, straight up, like, yeah, if we want to make a bundle, we just put it all together and then we ship it, and we can do it right now if we wanted to. Gara basically said that if Sony wakes up tomorrow and they wanted to make a bundle, or even this specific bundle, they could do it and then have it ready by launch. However, they're not going to do that. They're saying, like, straight up, like, this, it's not happening just yet. But they're not saying no. In fact, very specifically, Gara said, right, we're not saying yes to this PS4 Vita bundle, but we're also not saying no. But, you know, that, exactly. If they can't say no, then that means that the interest is definitely there. And they're even saying, he even said, like, you know, by the week, this idea of a PS4 and Vita bundle is becoming more and more of a reality. Now, of course, I think the reason why they're not doing it right now is because they can't hit a $500 price tag, which is sort of the peak of the PS4's price in terms of any sort of bundles that they're doing. You know, anything larger than that is sort of like, you know, retail, like GameStop will give 4 DualShock 4s and a Call of Duty and the camera, and they'll get away with shipping it at $600 something, but that's sort of the retail promotion. But, like, from what Sony officially wants to do, I think they don't want to hit that. They don't want to sell a bundle that's over $500. So as of right now, it's not going to happen, but Sony is interested, and they're saying, as of right now, they're talking with retail partners to try and figure something out, which I would assume is price ranges and boxes and, you know, shapes and hand gestures. Lots of hand gestures. Really emphasize the hand gestures. So let's talk about the PlayStation 3. How long does our great box have around here? You know, PS2 lasted over 12 years, and it's still going strong with its last game release coming up. But, you know, when's the PlayStation 3 going to end? When is that support going to end? And when is this machine ultimately going to be a thing of the past? You know, not being made and software not being made, but not forgotten, of course. But how long is that? Now, Shuhei Yoshida was talking to GamesIndustry.biz. Basically, what he said is he is not sure if the PS3 will last another 5 years. Now, to me, this was obviously a pretty cool topic that I thought we could discuss about. You know, how long does the PS3 actually have, you know, on the market, and games being made, and even servers and stuff like that? How long is all this stuff going to last? Now, of course, it's always worth mentioning, Sony always supports their systems after a new one releases. You know, PS3 is definitely going to be around for the next, like, 3 years, like, minimum. You know, that is at least 3 years that system has. But obviously, I do think it has way more than that. But it's also, you know, Sony said, like, how many years ago, like, the PS3 it's going to have a 10-year life cycle. Now, if it's going to have a 10-year life cycle, it's going to reach that in 2015? 2016. Now, as of right now, Shuhei is saying he doesn't know if it's going to last for the next 5 years. And that would be 2018, which would be actually further than the 10-year life cycle they had planned. But, of course, PS2 did last 12 years, and that's over the 10-year life cycle. But, you know, point being, they're definitely going to reach their goal of, like, a 10-year life cycle. That the system had 10 years of life, and it has 10 years of life in it, right? All around, I think PlayStation 3 is going to be around for another 5 years. And in terms of servers and PlayStation Network and the PlayStation Store, that, I think, has a long time to go still. 10 years plus, I'd say, as of right now, because there's dedication. Like the PS3 and the Xbox 360 are the first introduction of real online gaming. You know, friends lists, you know, party chats, invites, and all that. That's one of the 360 stuff. But, you know, PS3 has a strong user base in that sense too, right? I don't think those are going to go away anytime soon. There's still millions of people playing those things, and you think the release of PS4 and X1 is going to diminish that. It certainly will over time, but I just don't think it'll go away even after 5+ years. And plus, the PlayStation Store makes Sony a lot of money. In fact, since the PS4 is going to come out and it's going to have a brand new PlayStation Store, only PS4 content because it doesn't support PSN backwards compatibility, the PS3 has a way bigger ecosystem than the PS4 ever will have. PS3's got PS1 classics, PS2 classics, all this DLC, all these PSN games, all these cross-play games with PS3, PS4, PS Vita coming up. It has a way bigger ecosystem, right? And there's no way they're going to shut that down anytime soon. So the PlayStation Store ain't going nowhere. So basically what I'm trying to get at is that the PlayStation Store and PSN for PS3, I don't think are going to go away anytime soon. Those have, I would say, at least 8 years, possibly even way further than that. PS2 online gaming was still living for quite a long time into the PS3's life cycle, and the PS3 has this sort of situation where, again, it's a real online experience. You've got the PlayStation Store, you've got all these online games that have a huge fan base in the modern era of the 21st century. So I don't think that's going to go away anytime soon. And because of the PlayStation Store, because of PSN, because of all this modernized online gaming, I don't think Sony is going to stop making PS3s anytime soon, because there will still be some demand for it there, And since the PS3 is still going to be the second, because PS Vita and PS3 and PS Vita will be the PlayStation systems that have free online multiplayer, because PS4 will have that paywall. And I think that legitimately that may detract some casual users, or who knows, right? But I think that's sort of a real push for it. PS3 is only going to get cheaper, and PS4 is still the new hot thing. And even going into like the PS4's first price drop, where it's maybe $300, a PS3 by that time's got to be $150. That's super cheap. Someone could be like, wow, $150 for a PS3, I buy it, I get free online multiplayer, I can jump right in, play all these great old games, and there's a PlayStation Store. I can re-download PS2 classics because my PS2 and PS1 are already long gone or something like that. You look at it from a casual user standpoint, because I think it's fair to say for a lot of hardcore gamers, we are going to move on to the next generation. I'm going to still keep my PS3, and a lot of hardcore gamers are going to keep their past systems too, but from that casual standpoint, it might be a more enticing option for a lot of people, because that's always the thing. Like, a lot of casual people will stay behind in the past generation. They will not move forward unless they really have to, or until it becomes really affordable. And to add to this sort of chain reaction of predictions, for me at least, you got the PlayStation Store, PSN, that's going to keep Sony selling systems, and systems still being on the market, and the system having a huge install base, that might still have some strong software support throughout its life, until it really just starts to dwindle down to the point where PS4 is super cheap, and it's like the system, and then possibly PS5's coming. Where however gaming gets moved forward, because who knows where it would go, right? No one knows that. Anything could happen. But, that's what I think that would happen over time for the PS3. There's just a really big online push, a really online modernized push that would really give it a lot of extra room to live that the PS2 and the PS1 couldn't see, because the only thing that was keeping those systems from not dying was software. But here you've got something more. You've got an ecosystem, you've got a store, you've got real online multiplayer with friends lists and talking and chatting and all that. I just think there's a lot to keep the PS3 going. So to end the sort of idea of the PS3 and how many more years will last, I think it'll last more than 5 years. So it's kind of interesting to see Shuhei say he doesn't know if it'll last the next 5 years. I mean, I don't know for sure, right? Like, these are just predictions. I'm just some guy making YouTube videos on the internet. But that's sort of how I look at it. Obviously I would like to know how you look at it as well. But I just find it interesting that Shuhei would think that he doesn't really know if it'll last 5 years. I think it will last over 5 years for sure. But again, let me know what you think. How long does the PS3 got? Give it a death clock rating in the comments below. Kind of like Futurama, where Professor Farnsworth made the death clock. You put your finger in, then it tells you how long you have to live. Let's put the PS3's finger in that box and see how long it has to live. That concludes this week's episode of Let's Talk PlayStation. I'm Ron Benecki. Thank you for talking with me. I'll see you next Friday.